You know, I got to thinking, since I've caked a lot of giant foods and giant treats, how come I've never caked a giant gingerbread man?
Or just a giant man.
I mean, that would be more awkward. I mean, leave a comment below if you want to see me cake a giant man. Remember the whole phase where everyone was like, cake yourself, cake. I'm so glad we got over that. To make this cake, I'm actually baking a new recipe.
Woo.
Well, it's new for you guys. It's not new for me. I had baked this cake years ago. I had the recipe like written down somewhere. And I thought, why don't I make it for a gingerbread man? Because it's gingerbread cake. 20 pounds total of this gingerbread cake in 2 large rectangular pans. Now the next thing I want to do is layer each one into 2. And then I'm going to trim the caramelization off each cake along one long side so that I can butt the 2 rectangles up against each other and I won't have like caramelization in the middle of what will become one cake. Of course, I have a template. I lay it on top of my cake and I just use a small serrated knife to cut around my template. It's just a classic, like, you know, open-armed gingerbread man. They're never like in class. They're never doing the YMCA. They're just kind of, they're always like this, like ready to hold hands. Once I have my shape, I'm going to lift the top layer of cake off, and with the help of Sir Squeeze, we're gonna simple syrup this cake. Now, I did notice, and you're gonna see in the footage, I should have cut out the shape first and then layered, because it's really hard sometimes to layer a big rectangle. So my gingerbread man, like the bottom layer was kind of like this, which is okay. It's all gonna work out. It just bothers me. The simple syrup has soaked. Is that me? I thought I put my phone aside.
Okay. I mean, that's not my sound.
Okay. The simple.
It was me.
Oh, okay. we're like Cody. There's only 3 people here, so it's time to fill and stack this cake. So I spread on a nice layer of Italian Meringue Buttercream, but I have 2 other fillings for this cake. I have a packet of ginger snap cookies. They're the really thin kind. I love ginger snaps.
Are they the ones that are shaped like a windmill?
No, they're shaped like a flower.
Oh.
A windmill?
Yeah, the Dutch ones that are shaped like a windmill.
Okay, I have to go get those. So I'm going to take these thin ginger snaps and I'm basically just going to break them up and throw them on top of the buttercream. More ginger. And to add even more ginger, I'm going to spread on a ginger orange marmalade that I found.
Yum.
Yes. If you don't like orange peel, you can just get straight up ginger jam. You can omit this. Add as much ginger or none as you like. That gingerbread man can wait for a second because I have exciting news. I have a new series called Save the Cake coming to Facebook Watch in the spring. The best part about this is I want you to be in it. I'm looking for your biggest cake disaster stories. If you take part in the show, I will personally teach you how to make an amazing cake, and everyone in your family will forget about that one time. You should apply, Orhan.
That would be an amazing episode.
You know?
Yeah.
Casting is now live, so head to the link in the description below to apply. Save the cake! Oh my gosh, can I wear my seam hider outfit?
You should.
I'm only wearing my seam hider outfit. And then I'm going to line up the top 2 layers of cake with the bottom 2, and it's time to crumb coat and shell.
Awesome. Have we already cut them out, the shape?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Remember, you missed the template? That was
I remember the template.
That's the climax of this video.
Uh-oh.
There was a template. It's now time to ice and chill this gingerbread man. Yeah, I can't say any more about that. I used a small spatula because, you know, he's on the low side, but it really helps you get into the crevices that are his neck, his underarms, and his crotch. See what I mean? Imagine this was a giant man cake. And then for the top, I like to use an offset spatula, whether you use a large or a small, just because it keeps your hands off the surface and you can drag in all the excess buttercream. And now I can put him back in the fridge to chill. I have some gingerbread colored fondant. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cover him sides first and then top. And don't even worry about the seam because I'm going to creatively hide it. Okay, so I want to make sure that my bands are definitely thicker than the height of my cake. Now what I'm going to do is cover the cake in parts. So the first part I'm going to cover is his two arms with two separate bands, and I'm going to run the band from the neck to the underarm. The old me, I guess it's the young me. The younger me would have attempted to roll out a big sheet of gingerbread colored fondant and drape it over this cake, and smooth it down. And the problem with that is, even though the cake is low, which generally makes cakes easier to cover in fondant, you'll never be able to stretch the fondant once again into all his crevices without it tearing or looking bulky. Use a fondant smoother or your hands to smooth it along the side of the cake, and before the fondant starts to dry out, you're gonna wanna take that excess that's sticking up over the cake and fold it onto the top surface and smooth it. And then I cut two longer bands and repeated this step to cover the side of the gingerbread man up to his crotch on both sides. And the last band I used to cover all around his head. And just remember to fold over that excess. At this point, I'm gonna put the fridge back in the cake. At this point, I'm gonna put the cake back in the fridge to chill, and this will make it easier for me to trim that top piece of fondant.
How come you push it over the top of the cake?
You're gonna see why. Do any of you know why I folded the fondant over the top of the cake instead of trimming it flush? Anyone?
I know.
Yeah, I know you know. Now I need to trim that fondant that's all along the top of the cake. And what I'm going to do is use my template again. I love when I get to reuse my template. So I lay that template on and I carefully used a sharp paring knife to trim and leave, it was about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch border of fondant around the top edge of the cake. The next thing I need to do is roll out more of my fondant, make sure it's big enough that my template fits on it, and then I picked it up and put it onto a cake board. And now I'm gonna use the cake board to physically help me sort of slide the big sheet of fondant over top of the cake. The next thing I'm going to do is use my sharp paring knife again to trim that fondant within the border. So I'm basically trying to just carefully go along and trim along the seam so that those two pieces of fondant meet up. Okay, now I can smooth it along the surface with a fondant smoother, and he's basically completely covered, but you can see like an outline cutout, which is where we'll pipe our royal icing because it's a gingerbread cookie. You see where I'm going with this, don't you? It doesn't even make sense. I just like to. In this case, because the cookie is so big, I'm going to use my clay extruder and some white fondant, and I'm just going to pump out a whole bunch of cords, and that will look like piped royal icing. To attach it to the cake, I'm just going to brush on a little bit of clear piping gel right along that seam, and then I'm going to carefully pick up my fondant cords and follow that seam. Yes, and normally when you see a gingerbread cookie and it's piped or flooded, the icing is not right to the edge. You do see a border of cookie, and so that's why I folded the fondant over.
Got it. Applause.
I wanted this to look like a classic gingerbread man, because now they go all out, right?
They do, yeah.
They make gingerbread. I saw a gingerbread man with like beach shorts and sunglasses, but this is a classic. So I wanted to create some squiggly lines that would be like at his hands and feet. These gumballs to like push in at either direction so that I could make the
You're so adorable.
So I wanted the squiggles
The
to.
squiggles have to be exactly even.
Yes, they do. Otherwise, why would you eat that cookie? You'd be like, there's no way I'm purchasing that. If I buy anything like that, I'm the worst. And I'm just gonna line them up on the feet and the hands of the gingerbread man, and then I'll need to trim them where they meet the fondant outline. And I can just dab on a little royal icing underneath the squiggle to make it stick to the surface of the cake. This gingerbread man has no expression. Nothing, he's faceless. So he needs a face. We've got a pipe on the eyes and the mouth. So I'm gonna roll out some white fondant. I want it to be the same thickness as my extruded fondant. And now I'm gonna use a circle cutter to cut out 2 eyes and 2 larger circle cutters to cut out a smiling mouth. So I'll use the large one, then cut another circle inside, and then I actually used another circle cutter to mark the ends because I want it to look piped. And now it's time to place this on the cake. I placed it on and his mouth was far too big. He was like a big mouth gingerbread man. He's the gingerbread man that goes around like bossing around the other gingerbread men. So I took the mouth off and I feel like I adjusted the mouth like 5 times. Like first I made it thinner, then I felt like it was too long, so I cut the ends again. Then I just adjust it until you're happy and it looks right. And you kind of want his mouth to line up with his eyes, like make sure it's symmetrical. I don't want a crooked faced gingerbread man. What are you smirking at? I'm about to bite your head off. I should be smirking. Here's another pet peeve I have. I don't like overly decorated gingerbread men.
You have a lot of like...
I don't. So I'm going to add some green and red sort of jelly candies. They're almost like jelly beans, but they're shaped differently. And then of course, we've got to do the famous like buttons.
Well, a classic gingerbread man has to have the shirtless buttons.
Yeah, he's not wearing a shirt, but he wears buttons. Yeah. If you guys enjoy watching me obsess over things like measurements and symmetry, please subscribe. Please leave a comment below and let me know I'm not alone. And quite frankly, after the like McDonald's apple pie fiasco, I need to measure squiggles. I need it. This is how I heal. Before I reveal the gingerbread man, this has been quite a makeover. Honestly, he started out in a pan. I just want to remind you that this is the final call for holiday shipping. If you've got your eye on something at howtocakeit.com, make sure to get your orders in now, especially if they're gifts. Speaking of last calls, it's your last chance to sign up for this month's deluxe membership. Hello. I love this hoodie. Oh, and this month, there's not... This month there's not 1, not 2, but 3 sprinkle medleys. You can shop with the link in my description below. He is so adorable, but I'm hungry. If you want to see more awesome cakes, click here and here.